Good evening, all, and a very warm welcome to this session. It is a session where we're seeing the collaboration between the Childhood Obesity Prevention Committee and the District Training Committee. And this evening, we will be bringing to you a practical hands-on session on applying for a district grant. Before we kick off fully, I certainly wish to remind you of the protocols, the usual protocols. You've all been muted as you enter the room. Please stay muted. And this is so because this session is being recorded and it will be on our district website and YouTube channel within 72 hours. So just in case some of your colleagues couldn't make it tonight, please make sure to remind them they can still hear it, still listen to the recording after. We also have a French room, and certainly if you put to the French persons, and perhaps the English persons too, please click on that channel, either English or French, to make sure that you hear everything clearly as well. There will be a Q&A session at the end of both. We have two sessions tonight, a first session done by PDG Lara, and a second session done by Lise and Marieke. So a Q&A will be at the end of every session, and please don't hesitate to put your questions as the program progresses and the presentations are happening in the chat box. Please make sure you put it in bold as well and uppercase, so that the persons who will be tracking those questions can be easily identified. This evening, I will be assisted by the District Training Committee members. PPAB will be my co-moderator because I'm only going to be on for about 15 minutes and I'll hand over to AB. PP Lisa, who is also manning in the background along with Sean, is my forever timekeeper. She'll be keeping track of time and reminding us if you're running out of time. She will be sending that to me quickly, so let me move along. Thank you, PP Lisa. PP Kimberly and PE Alvina, along with PP Vias, will be assisting us in tracking the questions in the chat box. We're, of course, supported by our translators, interpreters and translators, Vicky and Natalie as well. And we are always grateful to have them around to assist us and certainly make our French attendees comfortable as well. So here we are. COP started this series in October, where we had Dr. Rosamond Adams telling us and certainly sharing with us, informing us really about the status of it in the Caribbean. We partnered with ACC in November, where we had Dr. Karen Boyle sharing with us, certainly educating us on what can be done to help to reduce, prevent, and ultimately eliminate. But I know that PP Virginia will talk a lot more about that when she gets a chance to share some opening remarks. This evening, we have our district governor, and I certainly wish to acknowledge his presence. I know that he's been flying from island and country to country, and we were happy to have him here tonight. To all those PDGs on the line, I say a warm welcome as well. PDG Leslie, I'm putting you into a pass, district governor already. DG Leslie, I know the usual thing is for you to kick off this exercise, and I'm happy that you were able to make it here this evening. I'll invite you in a minute or so. This evening, our presenters are PDG Lara, who will share the ins and outs, do's and don'ts in applying for a district grant. PDG Lara, as you all know, is in fact our grants chair and is the person who actually examines those applications that are submitted. And I know that some applications are rejected, some applications have to be sent back. And I think we have the perfect peer this evening to also share with you how they have been able to do it. Lise, as you know, PP Lise, as you know, if you would have visited our president's lounge, we call her the $1 million woman because she's been able to apply for a $1 million grant. And we have Marieke, who is also a member of the Rotary Club of Portsmouth in Dominica. And they both will be instructing us. We're calling them instructors this evening because they will be walking us step by step through the whole entire grant process. So to kick us off this evening, I'd like to invite DG Leslie to share a few opening remarks before PP Virginia shares her ideas as well. DG?
Yes, good evening all moderators. Thank you for inviting me to give the opening remarks. Not sure how many PDGs are on, but I certainly see PDG Sonia. So PDG Sonia, oh yes, PDG Wadi.
Wadi, yeah.
Any other PDGs? Chairperson Liz, members of the magnificent Child Obesity Committee. Good evening. It's the greatest pleasure to welcome you all to this evening's event, this webinar. Very important in terms of where we are with our childhood obesity program. That program, which has been rolled out 2 years now, and is now a full event in its own right. We've got to the stage where our clubs have adopted the COP program, and they've got to the stage where now they need to develop projects centered on childhood obesity project. Hence the reason for the collaboration between the District Training Committee and your Childhood Obesity Committee to present this evening's webinar. It is important that we, as Rotarians, when we are applying for grants, do it the proper way. And I just want to go back, and I know District Trainer Liz will smile when I mention this, but certainly grant writing is not in your experience. It's well documented in the Rotary Learning Center. And I know District Trainer Liz has been insisting that the Rotarians visit the Learning Center and take the courses in grant writing. Okay, so those of you who did it in the past, this is not new territory. It's just a refresher. But for those who have not done so, this is important, because if you are to apply for grants, we have to do it the correct way, right? There are many procedures for successful grant writing. And this evening's webinar will certainly give you the tips. And who else is a better person to present than PG Sonia and even District Trainer Liz herself, experts at grant writing, among others. So we're in for a very important and informative treat this evening, okay? And I wish everyone take copious notes and go forward to writing. I hope at the end of this, you can write successful grants, okay? This evening's event is a very important one in the hours of the Childhood Obesity Project, and I do welcome everyone here, and thank you so much. Thank you, Trainer Liz.
Thank you, DG. Thank you for those words. You know, I always recall we had this meeting, we had a COP meeting, and I was mentioning that we had about 75% of the clubs who were actually doing COP projects. And PDG Lara, then the DG, reminded me, because I mean, she's the best person to speak about it because she visited every single club. She said, no, Liz, we have over 90% of those clubs in our district having done a COP project successfully. But I know PP Virginia is seeking for us to do more impactful projects. She want to take it to the next level. So PP Virginia, I know you have some thoughts you want to share about where we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. So it's over to you.
Thank you, PP Liz, and again, also welcome all the PDGs and all the fellows here. Happy New Year, because it's our first meeting for the year. Wish everybody a healthy and wealthy 2023. You know, I don't think I need to speak about the problem of childhood obesity anymore to this group of people, because when we started with introducing childhood obesity prevention as a program for the Rotary, we noticed that everybody embraced it, and I have to confirm what PP Liz was saying and what also PDG Lara confirmed, that almost everybody was doing some kind of activity that you could relate to childhood obesity prevention. But if you want to know the impact of your activities, the first thing that is important is to put it in a program or in a project where you can measure, not only measure your outcome, but also at the end of the day, somewhere down the line, measure the impact. And childhood obesity prevention is not a standalone activity of the Rotary. So if you want to join the district, the Caribbean, Latin America, or the world in fighting or combating childhood obesity, then we should do it in a way that it's structured and that you can measure it. And I really have to thank everybody who really bought into this and took this with us to the next level of putting childhood obesity prevention as a priority program in their year plans. When we started with PDG Lyle in 2020, and when I did one of my first presentations, I mentioned an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And that is exactly what we are doing as Rotarians. And we notice now already 2 years after introducing the program that we cannot measure impact, but we can definitely measure output. And our first target in the first year was that at least 70% of countries would do childhood obesity prevention activities within their year plan. We surpassed that and we had 100%. Our next target the year after was 70% of all the clubs. And yet again, we surpassed and we were able to come to 100% of clubs doing in some way, shape or form childhood obesity prevention program. So, but the challenge always is funding. Where will we get the funding? And funding is everywhere. And one of the best ways to get funding was making use of what we have available. Those are our grant proposals that we can write and submit. So that's when the suggestion was born to make this training a training together with the training team. And we know that there are many trainings in grant proposal writing, but sharing with you my own experience, when you have the form right in front of you and you now have to put down the words in every section, you hit the brick wall. So what are the words that I have to put in there? What do they mean with this description? So today is really taking grant proposal writing to the next step with hand-holding, really actually doing this thing. So thank you, Lise and Marieke, for also immediately taking on this challenge when we spoke about it at the district conference last year. I spoke to Lise and Lise immediately said, yes, we're in, and now we're many months further down the line and we have the meeting today. So thank you, but I also want to share with you what is still ahead. So you already know, because you've got the save the date, that this training is a 2-tier training. So this is phase 1. And in February, we will have phase 2. And hopefully at that time, you are full-fledged grant proposal writers. But there is more to come. So, you know, last year, we also did the District 70 Moves activity. This year, again, the 70-30 Moves, we're going to take this one to the next level. We did the campaign last year to get persons physically active. This year, we are going to expand it by not only being physically active, but also taking it to the level of making this an action, a call to action. And in the coming weeks, you will hear more about that. So that's still to come, but I also want you to immediately be ready for the District 70-30 Moves physical activity. that will start by the end of January. It will run for a month, and on the 4th of March, we will have our big event, which would be then our district moves activity. What we also have, and it would be your day of service, the Rotary Day of Service. So those are some of the activities that are still waiting. The webinar, the lunch with District Governor Leslie is also upcoming. That's also an opportunity where we're taking the program with partners to the next level, getting our foot in the door with CARICOM, getting our foot in the door with international organizations such as the World Obesity Federation. So these are some of the things that will be happening this coming year. Thank you again for joining the training, and I am sure you will learn a lot this evening. And with this, I want to hand over to our district trainer, Lise, to introduce the other speaker and take this training away. Thank you.
Thank you, PP, Virginia. Thank you for those words. And I'm sure everyone now knows who is the lead person behind this. This is the engine behind COP and continues to be. And who says no to Virginia? No, you cannot say no to Virginia, because every time you think this is it, she comes up with something else. All right. PDG Lara, I got your note. I know that you're running from your phone. And at this point, I'd like to hand over to my co-moderator, AB, to take it away from here. Thank you all and have a great evening.
Thanks, Liz, and good night, everyone. Safe travels, Liz. So good evening, everyone. And it's always my pleasure when I have to introduce PDG Lara. I felt that it was just a few days ago I had to do that as Ryla, but here she is again, one of our really powerhouses in the district. Right. So Lara Quentrall-Thomas has more than 30 years experience in recruiting and human resource management in both the United Kingdom and Trinidad and Tobago, including 25 as an entrepreneur and company owner. As founder and chairman of Regency Recruitment and Resources Limited, Ms. Quentrall-Thomas has overall responsibility for more than 100 contract personnel. She is a founding member and was the first president of the Association of Female Executives of Trinidad and Tobago, and is a former director of the Office of Procurement Regulation Board, Economic Advisory Board, and AmCham Trinidad and Tobago. She has been a member of Rotary International since 1999 and is currently a director of the Rotary Club of Central Port of Spain, part of the Rotary District Center 30, Southern Caribbean. She held several positions in Rotary, including Assistant Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator for the Caribbean, District Governor, Group Study Exchange Team Leader, Chair of District Committees, including Grants, Rotaract, Website Literacy, Public Image, and Training. And she's the coordinator of 5 regional Model United Nations assemblies. Please extend a warm virtual welcome to PDG Lara.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all my lovely Rotary family across the district and beyond. I want to apologize. I'm having horrible internet problems. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm getting all sorts of alerts and things. So I'm going to talk really quickly so I can get information across to you before my internet drops again. But yeah, I want to say thank you to Virginia and Liz for inviting me to share some thoughts with you this evening. I need to update my, let's get started. I need to be able to share my screen, please, whoever the technical people are.
Go ahead, PDG.
And I know I have 10 minutes, so it'll be quick, and I'm sure this will be sent to all of you. Let me put it into presentation mode. Hello. Okay. Is the do's and don'ts of chair. So this is just general from my own experience as a Rotarian applying for funding myself for projects for my club, as well as some of my takeaways from being the grants chair and having to liaise with clubs who've applied for funding. So just a very quick overview of, and then some final reminders on how to make sure, or to at least increase your chances of a successful grant submission. So let's get straight into it. You must read the instructions. I cannot tell you the number of times we receive grant applications at the district level and Rotarians do not follow the directions that they have been given. It's essential that you follow the instructions, read the instructions, because remember, you are not the only organization applying. The funding agency may have hundreds of applications to review. So read it through carefully. One of the things that I do as somebody who applies for funding is I make a list. I read the application online. I do typically print it, to be honest. I'm a little old-fashioned like that. I felt helpful to have it in my hand, but I always extract key points from the request for proposal. I write down key dates. I write down key things that they need. So I know I have a checklist. Sometimes they will actually give you a checklist. Don't forget you have to attach the following, but make sure you read the instructions. The second thing is to write it. They will use language, whether it's poverty eradication or improving engagement of girls, women and girls in governance, or reducing childhood obesity. They will use words, technical language, then need to put that back in your application. So they know, you know what they're looking for. So use the language of the funding agency as much as you can. What that means is that you do not copy and paste everything for every funding agency. You must customize it. Make sure that you and your club submit all of the documents that they ask for. And let me tell you that many of them, especially international funding agencies, will require things like audited financials. We've talked a lot about this in the district. They will require a proper organizational chart or org structure. They may, in fact, recently we had to, I submitted an application and I was required to submit bios and copies of ID for all the directors of my club, which is a first for me. I hadn't had to do that before. So in some ways, it's almost like opening a bank account, which is a nightmare, as we know, in the Caribbean. But that a level of information, a letter of authorization, a letter from your bank that you're in good financial standing, all of those things may be required. So really look carefully at what they require you attach or upload, maybe testimonials from the communities that you serve, maybe photographs of, if this is a project you're doing on a repeat basis. There may be, for example, a request if you're asking for funding.
PDG Lara, sorry to interrupt.
Funding for something.
Sorry, it's Lisa here. I'm not seeing you in presentation mode, and we're still on the first slide, do's and don'ts. I think you might be speaking to the third slide.
Okay,
sorry.
That happened to me. No, you're fine. That happened. My screen share is loading. Okay, I don't know what that, I've never seen that before. Okay, are you seeing it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. I appreciate the intervention. I did a whole thing at Ryla on Saturday and none of my slides showed anybody. So, but I don't have any pictures or anything actually. So it's fine if it doesn't, because it's just really me going through a checklist with you. Yeah, so make sure you submit all the documents that they ask for. And what was I saying? So the financials, maybe director IDs. Oh, some of them, if you are requesting money to purchase a particular item or service, they will require 3 quotes. So again, very simple example. We have approached a company here in Trinidad to help us with replacing a sign at one of the schools that we work with, and they've approved it verbally, but we have to send 3 quotes. So it's important because they have to know that this is not going to benefit a Rotarian or the family of a Rotarian. So that transparency is critical with a lot of these, especially global and even Rotary funding agencies. You must meet their deadlines. And that is not like we do in our district, the district grant deadline, may always try and submit at least 2 or 3 days before the deadline. In some funding opportunities, you may even have a schedule from them that includes the opportunity to ask questions, which is very helpful. So you can go through the documents, you may have very specific questions that you can ask in advance. So map it out, understand the timelines, and meet the deadlines and the timelines that they've given you. Okay. I always recommend you get somebody else to proofread your proposal if you can, just for spelling errors, but also to make sure that it flows properly. It's a good idea to get somebody who's outside Rotary. Because on Rotary and read it, sometimes it's quite helpful, because they cast an eye over it and say, well, I don't know what that means, or what, what is that abbreviation? So those little things sometimes can be very helpful. And something that is critical in many funding applications is M&E, monitoring and evaluation. If an organization, let's say, for example, the United Nations, we got a very large grant from the UN a few years ago for our model UN from the UNDP. And it was absolutely, I keep having to admit people to the waiting room. It was absolutely essential that we build in monitoring and evaluation. And this is what Virginia was speaking a bit about earlier. It's not just the output, it's the impact. So we're going to give you $100,000 to do this project. How are you going to measure the impact of that money and how it's spent? What's the sustainability? This is really some a language that we use a lot now in impact on that school, that family, that community. So that M&E component is essential. And that's why very often you may find that the funding proposals go over a few years, because you're going to have to go back to the community every 6 months and how you're going to measure the impact. Don't be too long-winded. It's essential that you are concise. Many funding applications will ask you for an executive summary. They will be very specific. So if you needed something that was a little bit more, you wanted, one of the great things I have found is to actually maybe even create some videos and just include links to a YouTube video, of some of your intended community that you're going to serve, and talking about some of their challenges. So it doesn't all have to be narrative. There could be video, there could be some interviews, or if you've done the project before and you're now expanding it, this is what happened last time, so that it adds a bit of life to the application. But in the application itself, you have to be concise and get to the point. This is what we want to do. This is how much money we need. This is how we're going to spend it. And this is the outcome or the impact that we expect. Don't assume the readers know Rotary language. Don't use TRF. Don't use RC, Garden City. You must, if you do want to use abbreviations and Rotary jargon or technical language, if it's a very technical project, it's always a good idea to include a list of what the abbreviations mean. I can't remember the name of it now, but a sort of index or an indice. So you can use them, but make sure you explain them in a funding application. Typically, a funding agency will not pay salaries. They may be willing to pay, for example, a project management fee or an administrative fee. So if your project is really large and you are going to have to outsource some of it, get some professionals to help you, then, because we don't expect volunteers to execute everything, you can put that in. But what they typically will not pay for is staff, hired staff. So again, it's often a simple question of language, but they're not going to want to be liable for any employment taxes or any of those sorts of things. So don't include, be specific, get to the point. This is what projects in this area are so important, not just for your community, your country, but for our region, for our population as a whole. Don't fail to include your audited financial requirements. In many cases, again, our district grants are a good example. We require all applications be given to us in US dollars. So regardless of the currency that you use, the application must be in US dollars. So you have to be a Guyanese dollar figure. I mean, get a huge sum of money, which would be amazing, but that's not really what you want. Or you may put it in thinking it's Guyanese dollars, and the funding agency will look at it and say, whoa, hang on. So make sure that you look at all the financial requirements. What do they want? Under financial requirements as well as stewardship. It's essential to know what are their stewardship requirements. Global grants, district grants, we have some of those as well. So those of you that have worked with us on grants from the district will be familiar. Having on a global grant 2 club members signed, having a separate bank account may be a requirement. If you're getting a large sum of money from a funding agency, they may need you, then maybe mandatory. You do that. Do you have the resources? To do that. And some of them, what funding agencies are there? What foundations are there? There's Kellogg, there's Rolex, there's Commonwealth. Every embassy typically dollars from them every year, except for the last year, but we got it for about 5 years in a row. So there's money here. I've applied this year to the Japanese. Who knows? Keep your fingers crossed. So there's money out there. Common, hooray, that's $50,000. So there's money out there. You've just got to put the time and the effort into doing your research. And many of them will not be aligned to what you want to do. So a lot of them are very specific about where they will spend their money, very technology focused, for example, or they're only going to spend money in Africa, or only spend. There are hundreds of them. And then finally, some things to consider. Make sure that your project matches the areas of everybody's time. So for example, the EU, in sort of globally, but certainly in Trinidad and Tobago, and they are having a call for grants coming out very soon, their focuses are around governance, digital, green energy, recycling, all those things, and young people. So if your project falls under any of those, and you can often tweak it, then you've got a good chance of being considered. Of course, if you can do, you know, a digital governance project on recycling with young people, then you tick all 4 boxes, well, you're in like Flynn. But make sure that you match the donor's area of interest. Make sure you've got the resources to manage the funds. You know, don't want to join Rotary, but they could help you with some of the management of this. This is particularly important with the banking, reporting. When we got our big grant from the UNDP a few years ago, the reporting requirements were pretty horrendous. And I actually had to co-op a couple of other people from my club they required. And it was a huge amount of money that we got. Very glad for it. But they, you know, they really did demand proper, I mean, every single dinner mint that we bought, we had to have a receipt for. So, you know, be careful, make sure you have the systems, the people, the resources in place to show these agencies how you've spent the money. And of course, you've got to be able to get buy-in. If you're going to get a huge grant, make sure that the community that you're serving actually does want what you're selling, right? Make sure that we all know about community assessments, engaging them, have them on your team, have them even help you and be part of the grant writing. So they know this is in their benefit. And in fact, we should be teaching them also a little bit about grant writing, because a number of these smaller NGOs and CBOs don't know how to write grants. And it's important for you, and I have found this certainly in Trinidad, and I'm sure it's important to network with our Beauty of Beetham calendar. We've been doing it for a couple of years now, and we print 700, and I always keep 100 in our budget. We have 100 that we reserve. District governor will get one, the AG, and some of our sponsors and so on. But I always send a handful to the diplomatic corps. I make sure that the American ambassador gets one, the British High Commissioner, the EU, and because I want them just to know, hey, Rotary's still here, look how great we are. Don't forget, you know, put me on the list when money, if we go to events, you know, we invite them. So it's important to network with these agencies if you can, if they are in your community. He emailed me, thanked me, said he loved it, and reminded me that their call for proposals is coming up in the next couple of weeks. Nice to do, but there's also a reason. Phenomenal. You might see an article, you know, IDB, I just shared one today. The IDB has funded 2 green projects in Trinidad, 2 young entrepreneurs. So then maybe there's IDB funding. So send a note to the IDB. This is amazing, fantastic. How could my Rotary Club, you know, be part of this conversation about the work you're doing in renewables and recyclables? Because, hey, we've got this project. So be alert to those opportunities. And if you can, get on their mailing lists. Me, I hope that's been helpful. I apologize again for my wobbly internet, but I'm happy to take questions if we have time, and I'm sure you'll all be sent the slides. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Lots of information packed into just about 12 minutes there. Yes, we do have maybe 2 minutes, maybe 2 questions we can get in. Not one, whenever they pop up in the chat, we will certainly take note of it. And PDG, if you're around, we can direct them to you. So as we move on.
I just want to, sorry, one
Sure.
quick thing, Abraham, and I'm just going to apologize in advance. If I disappear, it's not, I'm not being rude. It's just my internet is really all over the place tonight. So my love to all. If I disappear, good night and thank you.
Understand. Thanks, PDG. Okay, so PDG, Alvina, if you can take over and introduce our keynote presenters.
Thank you, Abe. Good evening. It is my pleasure to introduce our featured speakers, beginning with Pipi Lise, who was born in the Netherlands and has lived and worked in France and Spain before moving to Dominica in 2007, where she, together with her partner, established a small hotel and restaurant on a seaside hill. She became a member of the Rotary Club of Dominica in 2008 and went on to serve in several positions, including president 3 times. She is actively involved with our global grants and district grants projects and successfully executed several global and district grants projects. Rotarian Marieke was born and raised in the Netherlands and has worked in the financial world for over 30 years. Her last job before moving to Dominica was executive assistant to the global head of mergers and acquisitions of the only cooperative bank in the Netherlands. Following her heart, she then moved to Dominica in 2016 and started her nonprofit for children in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. She is a published author and is about to publish her first children's book. She became a member of the Rotary Club of Dominica in 2021 and currently serves as her club's treasurer. She's actively involved in one district grants project entitled Breadfruit project, which seeks to empower primary school children.
Looks
Yeah,
like
Alvina, you're on mute. You're
clicks
muted.
on us.
I apologize, guys. It seems like it's internet all over, whether it be Guyana or Trinidad. But I have completed the intros and I will invite our featured presenters to go ahead. I apologize.
I think, Marieke, you have to try to share the screen. Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for the nice introductions. It could be that the internet in Dominica also fails now and then, so let's just try to work on it. I will try to speak slowly because I know we also have some of our French members in the meeting. So bonsoir, and for the Dutch ones, goedenavond. I'm not a professional speaker, I'm not a professional trainer, but I love to communicate, I love to meet people, I love to be with people, and I love to share information. So therefore, Marieke and I will do our best to give you some inside information how the Rotary Club of Portsmouth in Dominica is able to do district and global grants. We are not the experts, but one thing is what we do, we just fill in the form. That's the first thing you need to learn. Don't be afraid, just do it. Marieke, next slide, please.
Okay.
Celebration. We start tonight with a celebration. Why? First, celebrate to all you to be in this seminar, in this workshop. A picture of us, our club, celebrating one of our grants' success. Not the success, not the end result. No, what we're celebrating here is the email that came in from the grant application that said our grant was approved. And that is a big yes. That's when you start. That's when the adrenaline starts. That's what you want to celebrate with all your members. Be proud. You can celebrate. It's important. You did something, the road to the grant, and one part is finalized. You know you will get in the money. So your project really can start. Be excited. And through your celebration, you will involve more members who might not be involved in the project yet. So it is a good thing to build the motivation. You celebrate your achievement, and yes, you go, you start. Next slide. I want to begin a little bit of what for us, and I think for all members in whole Rotary International, is important to start with. Where does a grant start? In Rotary world, it starts with the foundation. Without the foundation, there is no grants. Where is the money going? Well, you can read indeed also that also Leslie already said, check Rotary International, Google. There is so many information on the website. It's not all coming from me or from Marieke or from Lara. We learned by reading, by try to see the trainings. That's how you learn. But 50% of the money that your club, so you as a member, donates to the foundation will come back to the district over 3 years. So if you want to apply for a grant, the money that's in the pot at that year is the money that our district sent to the foundation 3 years before. So it's very important that all your members at least donate a little bit. So please go back to your club if you're in this training and tell your members, if you want to do a grant, we need to start where we need to start, foundation. Next slide, please. Simple, a picture of the foundation piece of the puzzle. I call it also the key. Again, this is the key to the road of the grants. So without it, really guys, try to remember, this is very, very important. Our club till now does pretty well. It's also in one of the citations normally, so can't say it enough. Foundation money, that brings our Rotarians to get grants and to be able to do projects in your community with or without help of other NGOs or other Rotary clubs. But there starts, especially for the district grant, get the foundation money in. Marieke, it's up to you now.
I know. Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir. When you start to think of a project, you have to know that Rotary International has 7 pillars, and your project has to fit in one or more of the pillars. I'll give you an example or a few examples from all of the 7 pillars, starting off with promoting peace. You can think of like connecting 2 schools in 2 different countries, have them communicate via Zoom, facilitate that as a Rotary Club, so they can get to know each other, they can build friendships, but also understand about the differences in culture. The second one is fighting disease. We all heard Virginia talk about child obesity prevention, so I'm not going to go into that. But you can also think of things that are really adamant in Dominica is hypertension and diabetes. I think even our club before I joined did a project on supplying blood pressure meters. So it can be very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. The next one is providing clean water, sanitation and hygiene. I think the Rotary Club of Trinidad and Tobago Antigua did a clean water project for schools, which is very important. I mean, clean water is life. So clean water is essential for everybody, especially school children. And the Rotary Action Group did a project on WASH, water sanitation and hygiene. Saving mothers and children can be as simple as providing personal care hampers for mothers who just had a baby in the hospital, for example. I read that the Rotary Club of Aruba has done a teen mother housing project, also very important. Supporting education. Our club did a project for the Breadfruit House, as you just heard. The Breadfruit House works with primary school children, and we show them that there's a way to express your emotions and process your feelings with creativity, because young children, it's very difficult to navigate talking about it. So that's education, but also health, because it's mental health. The last two ones are growing local economies and protecting the environment. For me, they are connected, and we did two projects in that. We did a beekeeping project last year that is still flowing over to this Rotary year, where we had we have trained and educated 30 farmers, but Lise will tell a little bit more about that in a minute. And we recently received funding for a fruit project, because I think it's citrus trees that suffered from some sort of disease a while back, and we hardly have any citrus trees anymore. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Marieke. The beekeeping project, I could talk hours, but I will not. I just had some picture here from one of the successful trainers, farmers, not trainers, but participants, sorry. Terry, the lady you see, she managed indeed to get honey already. She cooperated with Bee Happy, an already existing beekeeper. She went to trainings. She starts to be very successful. And how did this start? Because I think for a lot of people in this training is, yeah, nice, you did that project, but how did you come to that project? Where do we start? Where is the beginning? For us, the beginning is always communication. You need to learn to, if you go international, go to other Rotary clubs, visit other clubs. Also within your own country, your own island, visit other clubs. Talk with people and check what they want. What are their needs and needs? We in the Dominica know it's always difficult to do fundraising, so we always need to find clubs who might have some money. So we talk a lot, and then we get clubs who have an interest in doing projects with us. In this case, for the beekeeping, one of our Rotarians, Mac Marara, had a relationship through work with an NGO on Dominica, Israel. Hans and I, Rotarian Hans and I, in our hotel during the COVID, we got people from Israel coming here for quarantine. So we speak about Rotary. We talk about our interest. They talk about their interest. And there we met like, oh, wait a minute. It would be great if we could do a project together. Israel has a lot of knowledge in doing projects. And we as Rotary, we are good in hosting projects. Next to that, Hans and I were still in contact from a few years before with the Rotary Club of Bracebridge in Canada, especially with Rotarian Linda, who was also visited the club one time, but we stayed in contact. They also helped us with some money for one of our global grants, and not doing the grant, but just they donated some money. She came to us, so people come sometimes to you if you keep in touch. We would like to do a project with Julie's. So by talking with all those people and sitting together, have Zoom meetings, brainstorm, with the knowledge of Israel, who already did a small beekeeping project in Dominica, and with the need of having the bees back after our Hurricane Maria, we were starting to think like, okay, the project was growing. And there we started to get all the people together, and we had one big advantage in here, because then you start thinking about it. But next to the foundation, another key element, what we found is have a very good needs assessment done. It's not what you like to give to the people, it's what the people need and want to receive and want to take ownership of. Because if you just put something on people, what they don't really feel they need it, they want something else, they will never take ownership and your project will never be sustainable. We learned those things in making mistakes also. So you will make mistakes, but it's a good thing to keep in your mind. So there was for us, the beekeeping project was born. Next slide, Marieke.
That would be me.
Yep.
These are a few pictures of the breadfruit house. This was a very small grant. It was only $1,000, but we did so much with that. And not only did we fund the project for this program for the entire duration, but every single session, one Rotarian came and brought something healthy for the children. One Rotarian brought a pineapple, another Rotarian brought apples. And at the final session, when they all graduate, I think we had 6 or 7 Rotarians bringing fresh juice and banana bread and pizza, which is not healthy, but we were there to celebrate. I think for children, especially here in Dominica, where there is no psychosocial support for children, it is very important that they know that other people care, and that they learn how it's through creativity you can process your emotions and your feelings. You don't always have to talk about it. So I think this was a very, very successful project, which hopefully we can repeat one day.
And then we go to one of our 2 global grant projects. I will not talk a lot about the project itself, but here also I would like to explain that also this project started by communicating with other clubs and making friends with other clubs, staying in touch with the other clubs. This was with a club in Canada again, but this was Lethbridge East, the other side of Canada, and IT for Dominica, also an NGO, but an NGO in Canada. Those people that IT for Dominica is coming already for over 25, 30 years to Dominica to teach teachers of primary and secondary schools programs on the computer. They do trainings, and there came also the idea, special again for us after Hurricane Maria, to give Chromebooks, computers, portable computers to all primary schools in Dominica, but only with the collaboration of the funds and the Chromebooks coming from the Rotary Club in Canada, Lethbridge, the knowledge of IT for Dominica, and the collaboration of the Ministry of Education in Dominica to provide the internet in the schools. We were able in 2 phases, I think in total to 3, almost 4 years, because we just finalizing on the 25th of January now, the last phase 2 of the second part. And that made it successful because we were in collaboration with other people. Some people have the knowledge that you don't have. We, what I said before, are very well in hosting, because they need always a hosting club on island. You know the island, you know the people, you know where to go, you know where people can stay. That's a very important role in grants to be there. Next slide.
Okay, as you all can see, we still have not even touched the form that you fill out. We're still discussing how you finalize your project, how you shape your project, how you make it fit in one or more of the 7 pillars. To make your project sustainable, it is very important to do a needs assessment of what you want to achieve, but especially, as Lise just said, what the community needs, not what we want to give them, but what they need. So involving the local community is extremely important from the day you started doing the needs assessment, but also once Rotary has completed the project and you want it to continue, for example, you need maintenance or you need other things, make sure the community is involved actively. If you involve like another organization, either the government, an NGO, it might be a good idea to sign an MOU if needed. You can also think of doing a follow-up training or a refresher course. We are looking into that for our beekeeping project to keep people engaged and ask them, what do you need? Do you still need a refresher on this? Do you remember everything that we taught you? And finally, support, assist, and mentor at least one successful person from the project. The beekeeping project, that was Terry Henry, who is doing extremely well and who is very pleased with the fact that she was part of this whole project. Then the second part is the budget. Once you have identified your project and you know it is in one of the 7 pillars, you have to set your budget. Make sure it is realistic. Include labor, equipment, supplies, transportation, lunches, whatever you need, venues, make sure it's in there so you don't miss out on money once you start the project. A district grant is between $1 and $29,999 US. In general, grants between $500 and $5,000 US allow most proposals to be approved. If 3 clubs apply for a grant of $25,000, then less money is left for other clubs who apply. And finally, determine the amount your club and others can contribute to the project. This is an example budget. Suppose your entire project will be estimated at $6,500 US. Then you can apply for a district grant for $5,000 US. Your club will fund $850 US, and others, that can be a private party, a government, another organization, another club, will fund $650 US. If your club is struggling to find money for that, you can have like a dedicated fundraiser to raise the $850 US. Lisa?
Yeah, now we come to the real stuff, the application form. Before you even start filling in the first line, be sure that your club meets all the conditions. I think Lara already explained in the beginning, be sure you read the instructions, but also there are a lot of conditions that you really have to know that your club meets those before you start filling in. A simple example, be sure your club paid the Rotary International and the district dues. Be sure you have an audited finance from the last year. But also important, like for us, a club that's doing grants, be sure that when you have the end date of your grant, like we have now for our last phase 2 of our global grant from the computers, the end date is 25th of January. If we don't reach that and report and sign off before that date, we are not able to apply for a new global grant. So you need to know all those things, and that's very clear because it's all in the first, I don't know, 2-3 pages in the application form, our district application form. So read that careful, sit with the board or sit with the persons of the finance and check off if you do those things before you even start writing and spend time and energy and then send it to Lara, and Lara said, come on guys, you didn't even pay your district dues. So be realistic. Is your club able? Does your club meet all the conditions? And then if you do all the things and think about what we spoke before, it is simple. And again, but I said also, I'm not a trainer, I'm not a speaker, but I'm also not a writer. Marieke is a good writer, although for both of us, English is not our native language, so we always struggle a little bit. Therefore, somebody else always have to check. And that's not a problem. You have members in your club. I like to talk, I like to explain what I think the project should be, but then we find other people in the club who are able to write the correct words. So use the members if you're not able to do it yourself. So the project name, simple. I think it's simple. Your club name, you should all know that. The project objective, to give an example, for the beekeeping, it was to have 30 farmers trying to do as much as possible, females, to be at the end able to build their own beehive and to produce honey. That is the end result, the objective, what you have to keep in mind, and then you write out the road to the objective. Next slide. Areas of focus. I think Marieke explained very well also with examples. If you need more examples, go to Rotary Showcase. There are millions of projects done already. Also, you can even search on our district. You can search on one of the areas of focus to get ideas and okay, well, what do we do here and where does my project fill in? So really don't be afraid and use the tools that are online. It's all there, and I know you have to do it, you have to see it, but use your members, talk with your members and do it together. If you don't have time, do it during a meeting, do it during a board meeting. Have a committee from special for that project and do it together. Which community will benefit? It can be an area in your country. It can also be a group of people like Marieke, the Breadfruit House, that was children. For the beekeeping, it was farmers. For our computers, again, children. It can be different kinds of groups or areas, but you have to write it down. You need to know to whom, which community you will do it and who will benefit and how many people will benefit. Like if I see for the beekeeping, you say, okay, so first we start those 30 participants. That's what you normally write in the grant. But if you think further, there will be much more people, because if they produce honey, I will benefit. A lot of people in Dominica will benefit. And at the end, it's good for the environment. So we get growing more. So the all farmers will benefit, because those bees, if it's on your land, the neighbor will also benefit. So think a little bit outside of your box, but it's not so difficult to, if you think about project, like, okay, you just be down to earth and just fill it in. Next slide. The project start and end day. Of course, you need to start somewhere, so you need to put a date that motivates you also to do it and get ready. The end date, be aware, be a little bit flexible for yourself, because what my experience is, it always takes more time than you think, especially in the Caribbean. So be aware, there's always, it can be a hurricane between, it can be this or that. So just try to be realistic for yourself, because once you put that end date, that's the date when you need to fill in your reporting. And still, it can happen. We also had with one of our projects that we couldn't source the stuff, and because of the COVID, so you just be in contact. In this case, we were in contact with Lara, explain what the situation is, and then you can get an extension. For a global grant, it's more difficult, but even with the computer project, we got an extension. But you have to be, again, you need to reason it out and be realistic and honest. And then there's always a possibility, but try to have that end date clear for your club, for yourself, and to the district. The sustainability. We already talked about it. Another very important key element, what I know, needs assessment, sustainability are very connected, and in the district, but special if we go to global grants, if that's not filled in correctly, well, it's a no. In here, we get samples, they already help us from what do we fill in, because it's a difficult part. You think, oh my gosh, where do I start? Well, it's difficult. I agree, but it's not impossible. Skills and knowledge transfer. Sorry, I go back again to my beekeeping, because it's easy to explain. The skills that the people learned first was building their own hive. They also got their own hive, the one they built. But now they have the knowledge how to make it. They know where to get the material, because we told them. And they know the people who help the trainers are from Dominica, so they can always go back to that person. we also did a small training, our Rotarian self, about basic marketing and basic business. Because some of those farmers suddenly are like, oh, wait, but this is more serious. And if I want to, people already speaking, but if I grow and I want to export, and so you need to give them some basic information. That's the knowledge that we transferred. The expendable supplies. Yes, the beehives, the wood trainer, and we also give them suits, boots, smoker, those things you need to put there because that is what you have to source and that is what special the money goes to. In this case, in this project, the maintenance, but also, yeah, the expected supplies, maintenance and the supplies. The people agreed when the course started and understand, so you have to be very sure, you can do it with MOU or sign a little thing, that we will not provide them with 10 extra hives. It's that one hive in this project. And when they want to have an extra hive, they need to find a way or make it themselves, or we can come back and see if we can do fundraising or go to another part that might want to help them. But if they are able to produce a little bit honey and we sell it, they will be able maybe to do a second hive. So you learn people that it's really their hive, but they are responsible for it. If their smoker fails, we don't give a guarantee, we don't give a warranty. It's up to the person themselves. So they also are very aware that they are really responsible for their own maintenance. And again, from the 30 people, not all are 100% successful. But we got lately, again, somebody showing on a picture in a WhatsApp group, because they created a WhatsApp group, the beekeepers. They share problems, they share success, they give knowledge to each other. So that's what we know. That's already very sustainable, a simple WhatsApp group. But then somebody who struggled in the beginning has this little pot of honey on her table and is so happy. Sharing that information, the whole group is happy, like, wow, you Cheetah, you did it, you can do it. That lady is a 70-year-old lady living high up in the mountains. And she struggled because it's very difficult to come there, so hardly anybody wants to come to help her. But by being persistent and by using the app and asking the fellow participants of that project, she made it. So the sustainability is there, but you need to be aware to help those people to take ownership of the project and that they are aware, whatever project you do, that the Rotary can't be there for maintenance and more money, only when you do a second project. So there's for me the sustainability. Next slide.
That would be me.
Oh,
Partnering, yes or no? Will you be partnering like we did with the beekeeping project with Israel? Will you be partnering with the government? Will you be partnering with private person? It can be anything. Just make it, write it on the form. And then the Rotary involvement. Are there any other clubs involved? There can be clubs in your own country, clubs in the region. It's really straightforward. And how many Rotarians will be actively involved? So not how many Rotarians say, yeah, I'll do something, and then they say, I don't have the time. How many people are actively involved? And with involvement, you can think of simple things like providing lunch for a training, make sure people get to the venue in time, arrange the venue. But also we had a beekeeping training. We had somebody from our own club present something about simple marketing because that's one of her skills. So it can be really close to home, but make sure that you write it out as clearly as possible on the application form. If you can and want to, you can involve interactors and Rotaractors, of course. That's very straightforward, I think. Then we come back to the budget. It's very easy to fill out. You just need to specify it. And the budget, again, is not the same as your grant request, because you also your club puts in some money, as well as probably other clubs or other organizations. This is something that Lise just stressed, and I want to stress again. Please read the terms and conditions. Read them twice or 3 times if you need to, but make sure that you meet all the terms and conditions, because otherwise Lara is going to deny your grant proposal. One of the things that is very important is make sure you have a spreadsheet and keep track of everything, every money you spend, have a receipt for it. So once the project is completed, you can send in the report with all the necessary documentation. I cannot stress that enough. It's not complicated, but it has to be done. Also, when the project is finally completed, you have 1 month to send in your report and all your paper trails. So that's also something to keep in mind. If you spend the money and you spend less than the grant you actually got, you have to refund. Let's say you applied for 5,000 US, you spent 4,500, you have to refund the $500. Which is fair. I mean, if you didn't spend it, you didn't spend it. Also, if you are non-compliant to the terms and conditions, you have to fully refund everything. So please read everything careful. I cannot stress that enough. Once you have done all of that, you met all the terms and conditions, you have filled everything out, then the club president has to sign. And finally, there are 2 persons required who are responsible for the reporting progress. It's very straightforward. Just make sure you discuss it with your club who those people are going to be. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Questions?
Great. So lots of information to digest from both presenters. Very simple, very simply described your project status. Questions. I got one from me. How do we access the district grant application? Please.
Sorry, how do we access
the application?
What I sometimes do, I just send an email to PDG Lara to ask her to send me the application, or you go in the district and look for it. I think it's also once a year they send it by email. But you just, if you can't find it, just send an email to PDG Lara to request to send it.
Yeah, I looked on the district's website and I couldn't find it. Maybe it's embedded somewhere, but at least we have a workaround by sending it to Lara. And another question that I got during the project, I know when you submitted your proposal, what's the turnaround time for a response?
You mean the moment you put in the proposal and you send it, and then when you get the yes or no? That's what you mean with the question?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I think the last time was pretty fast. I think it took, let me see, it was end September. It was, I think, 6 weeks. It can take, I think, up to 2 or 3 months, but I think it's pretty fast.
Okay. And during that time, I mean, we're going to be submitting estimates on cost. Should the, prices of whatever consumables that's going to be used, and if that changes, is cost variation accepted, and meaning that you can go back, or you just got to fund that on your own?
I would not be able to answer that question with a yes or no. We had also challenges with that. Some of the products we wanted to source were more expensive, but we just worked our way around it, that we stayed still within our budget. So we never had to ask that, because we just said, okay, this is what we have. So it's our responsibility now. That's how we see it. And therefore, we just worked around, and maybe you have to skip a little thing or try to get for yourself another fundraising to get more money in. I'm not sure how the district looks at that, because we never asked it, because we found it our responsibility to stay within the budget that we put in the grant.
So we have a few questions coming in. Must projects be completed within the Rotary year?
No.
Okay.
But you fill in an end date, it has to be realistic. But they prefer for a district grant to have it finished within the Rotary year, but you get the grant almost in the second half of the year, and then it depends. So if you say you start in May in that Rotary year, yeah, you probably can't finish it. So therefore, you have a beginning and an end date. And also was those questions what I said. I'm not the person that approves the grants. PDG Lara will give you the exact answers. I can only give you what in our experience happened, and that we didn't have problems if it goes over the year. But be clear, you have your end date.
Okay, wonderful. Here's the next question that's coming in. Can you give an example of a needs assessment?
I think for the beekeeping project, we noticed that because of Hurricane Maria, a lot of nature was destroyed, and bees were, well, I wouldn't say no longer there, but because bees were not really populating properly, farmers are, how do you say that in English? Sorry, farmers are suffering. So that's an example of a needs assessment. We need more bees to pollinate, and so farmers can prosper, but also people were interested in beekeeping and had been asking us, if you ever do something with beekeeping, we would like to be involved. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think Marieke, to also add to that, we went indeed, ISRA8 had an assessment done. You go also to the farmers to check what they indeed want and what their needs are, and if that fills in what we think the needs are, so that you have a complete project, and be sure that the people really are interested in that project. For the primary schools, we had an assessment, we had a questionnaire for the teachers to understand how they teach, what is the need, what those children need, also for the programs. And you need to come with those information to show that there's really in the community a need. So you need to go out to the people and do that with a questionnaire, or you call people, but you have to gather information in the community or in the group where you want to do this project, to be sure that the project is well received and can be sustainable afterwards. I hope those two answers are answering the question.
Yeah, just a little extension to that same question. So what you've explained there, are you required to provide that kind of support as part of the grant application, or just you can just express that in whatever data that you submit with the application?
I don't have the application now by hand, but I think somewhere in the questions it is not exactly set as need assessment, but if you have the needs assessment, you can pick some answers out of there what you need to fill in. So I'm not sure now where exactly it is. I know in a global grant for sure it's there clearly, but in a district grant those elements of the need assessment will come out. We try in our club not to have a project going to the board before the persons who want to do the project did at least a simple need assessment, so we can really go with the project. It's important to know that what you want, again, that the other people also want to receive that. And I think I need to go through the questions again for the I say application, where exactly, but I know if we have it done, we pick out the information out of the needs assessment.
Okay, wonderful. A couple more questions here. Can a club have or submit more than one grant applications within the Rotary year?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, wonderful. Another question here. Can you comment on being realistic for a Rotary Club to do a project on their self-capacity assessment if they can project manage? Not sure what it means there. It may demand a lot of volunteer time and cost that a club may not have. To kind of rephrase this question, I think the person is asking, can you, is it realistic to expect club resources to project manage, the entire thing? What's expected from the application? I see PDG Wadi has his hand up if he wants to take this one.
Thanks, Wadi.
Yes, thank you. With regard to, first of all, the needs assessment, I think we have to make a distinction between global grants and district grants. District grants are really simple to fill in, and the requirements are lesser and much not so difficult to follow than the global grants. And with regard to the timeline for district grants, normally in July, the grants chair will send out all the details about how to apply and the form and the requirements to apply for a district grant. The timeline is till July and August and till the end of September. And then at the end of September, within 2 weeks, the district will reply and send you the answer if it's yes or no, and sometimes for what amount of money, because we should know that, of course, the funds we get because of our from the annual fund is about half of what we donate 3 years before to the foundation. So for example, for this year, the total funding for district grants was about $42,400, let's say $45,000. That's more or less the last 4 or 5 years it's been in that range. So you can imagine that, yes, it will be a small amount because the more proposals we get in, the more we would like to spread it out. So let's say if the funding you want to have, it's about between, let's say, 3, 4, 5,000. It will be easier to get than if, for example, you're asking for 15 or 20,000, although it is within the limit of a district grant. So that is what I wanted to say. Is there what was the last question?
I think it relates to whether it is expected that the club, provide its own capacity of volunteers to, to manage the project. Some depending on the scale of the project, they may not have, and then how do we factor that cost into the project?
Well, from my experience and what I see is that it's not allowed to, let's say, and especially Rotarians have been awarded, financially awarded within a project. So with that regard, in that regard, yes, we have to, what we do is that we supply our free time. That is why we are Rotarians. Rotarians, we can do 3 things. we give our time, we give our talent, and we give our treasure. So, but for example, if you want to, you're building something or whatever, of course, you will contract a company, for example, and they will do the project. But still, in the end, you will have to manage, you will have to monitor, to evaluate, because it's your project.
Thank you, PDG Wadi. I think we have time maybe for one last question, and that is it mandatory that clubs have or present audited accounts to be able to qualify for a district grant?
No, not really. Of course, there should be at least a review. And what's very important is that, especially for a global grant, is that, yes, there should, for example, be a financial management plan that you have to fill in and also supply. I mean, within the application, they will ask for your financial management plan. What it means is that you have to just explain how do you do your accounting, your financial administration. Do you have a separate bank account for projects and things like that? Who are the signatories on the accounts? All those things. So yes, they really need to see that you are a club with a financial management plan and according to, let's say, normal standards, financial standards.
Wonderful. So time has flown by very quickly. We just about the time allocated for this event. I'm sure everyone on the call this afternoon is a lot more enriched about grant writing, and we're all excited to, looking forward to the next session. I think it's February the 8th. So as we bring closure to this evening's event, I'll ask PDG Sonia to close us off.
Thank you, AB. Good evening, everyone. Please forgive me. My camera is playing the fool this evening. So I'm off camera for the first time ever on a Zoom meeting of this type. What a wealth of information we got, both from PDG Lara and from Lise and Marieke's presentation. There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of in applying for grants. The more you do, the easier it becomes. With this information that you got this evening, I urge you to apply for district grants, apply for global grants, find partners, apply for grants at the UN, in the EU, with the Japanese government. There's lots of grant money out there, and a lot of them revolve around things that we as Rotarians hold dear, our 7 areas of focus. So thank you so much for a wonderful evening. Thank you to all of you for turning out in your numbers. This is a good sign that we are on the road to getting ready for our grant writing, the project fair, which is coming up at the district conference, where the project proposals are due at the end of this month. Think about those things and let's get some projects to the project fair for consideration. Thank you so much for having me, and I really do wish to see you at the next in the series of the Childhood Obesity Prevention Grant Writing Workshops, which will be on February the 8th. That's it from me, and thanks so much.
Thank you, PDG Sonia. So as we leave, just remember, take a minute to complete our survey. Feedback is always welcome to the team so that we can improve going forward. So good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.